I'm back again talking to a camera. Today is the first time that I've felt complete relief after handing in my resignation to the company. It is one day before the very last day of my tenure at this company. It's relief, but at the same time, I feel sad. I feel sad that I will now have to leave a quite supportive environment with people I've built a pretty strong relationship with, especially the immediate teams that we have to work with. We're on quite good terms, and I would even call some of these people my friends. And then I was also able to foster a couple of deep friendships, which I am very, very grateful for, and people who I will still continue to hang out with, associate with once I do part, once we once I leave the company. Because oftentimes at a corporate setting where, when you're at work, it's very difficult for you to find friends, to find people on the same wavelength. And I do feel like I'm quite fortunate to have thrived in such an environment. And I'm glad that there's something to feel sad about prior to my departure. It shows that it was a right decision to work here. And it's a right decision for my growth as an individual, as I did learn a lot here. But what about the bad things? I'm just starting to get less and less comfortable with how corporate is. The fact that you all have to use the same language to communicate. When you use a word 100, 1,000, 10,000 times, to be honest, it starts to lose its meaning, especially when people offer such a word as a reason to not do something. This is not the way we should do this because this setup is not elegant. This setup is not elevated. It's a bunch of people saying the same stuff, thinking that they're on the same boat, thinking they're getting the point across. But at the end of the day, you haven't done shit. That's one part of corporate that I really, really dislike. The second part about corporate is the fact that in most cases, you do have to act quite cordial to people, and especially people you don't really fucking like. Me, I have a problem with that. I am a pretty straightforward person. If I don't like you, I don't like you. And if I like you, I'm good. And if we're, you know, if I'm neutral, then I'm neutral. But I find it very, very difficult to act cordial to people I strongly dislike. And it's also my problem. I do think that this is something that everyone has to work with. Everyone has to sit through, because in order to get things done, it's still based on relationships after all. And to maintain and foster relationships, you have to act cordial. You have to be warm to people and whatnot. And oftentimes I struggle with that, and I hate that. I hate that. Because this is the way I am. I don't want to be someone else. I don't want to be someone else just for the sake of corporate. It also might sound really stupid because this is a job and you're trying to get yourself fed, right? But deep down inside, there's something so disgusting about doing that. People all seem to do it. And another thing would be how repetitive it would be. And another thing would be corporatization of a company that's supposed to be a startup. Making empty promises, that's the first sign of corporatization. Hiring people for bullshit jobs that don't really get anything done, that's another sign of corporatization. Focusing on things that are not foundational, don't really build fundamental pillars of, operating a company, but instead focusing on things that don't really matter, things that are style over substance, things that don't solve operational problems that the company is currently experiencing, and instead using that money for bonuses for people at the very top, while the company is making a lot of money and people who are doing the execution are not getting an appropriate raise, or those who are putting in a lot of work are not being considered for promotions, and there isn't really a concrete career plan drawn out for people within the company. Corporatization. You see tech companies doing a lot, mass hiring in order to showcase to the market that we're about to expand. We're hiring more, so we should also be expecting more in return. And a year later, mass firing people because they overhired in the very first place. Corporatization. Another thing that I can also think about is performance evaluations. I've often wondered, how are you able to arrive at an accurate performance evaluation that warrants someone's promotion, or what exactly are the criteria for performance evaluation? And how are we able to overcome the subjective measures that we use as performance evaluators for, especially for posts that are not pegged to hard KPIs? I've always found that to be pretty amusing. A lot of it is subjective, right? A lot of it comes from the manager's preference. A lot of it comes from the preference of senior leadership. Of course, those are people at the very top in control and running the company, and therefore they should have that decision-making power. But to say that it's objective, to say that it's foolproof, to say that it's not error-prone, it's very flawed, and I can't say that. I don't have the answer to a better way to measure performance, but I do see that as a problem. And communication is also a pretty big issue, at least from what I observed during my stay at most companies, to be honest. Communicating expectations and assigning and talking about whether you've lived up to those expectations, that doesn't really happen all that much. And people are not really truthful about performance. And oftentimes they're just telling you things that won't really actualize. It's just ways to keep you going, keep you grinding for the company, while they can sit and enjoy. And in the case that you were to head out, that's cool. That's cool. You can get replaced by anyone in the market, right? Or so my former boss would say, I can replace you today if I wanted to. Today. Replaceable pawns we are to the corporate game. Replaceable pawns we are to the corporate game. Always remember that someone else out there can do your job. So the next question would be, what exactly would be our worth as individuals? If it's not through work, especially this type of work, what can it be? I still find understanding what you enjoy and working towards making yourself better in that area stands to be the best solution to existential problems like this, especially for us at this age and time. A couple decades before, when our parents were growing up, they had less choices and the path was quite clear. A lot of our parents, especially in East Asia, grew up not wealthy, quite poor to be honest, and they had to work their way up bit by bit and step by step. But the path was there. There was only one option, and the only option was to grind your ass off. And in return, because the competitive landscape back then wasn't as competitive, wasn't as saturated, they were able to make pretty good lives off of working their asses off, working for a company for 30, 40 years, and even just working for a company all the way until they retire and be able to live well. But for us, now it's 2026. Market landscape is a lot more saturated. We have a lot more options out there. The question for us would be, which one would you choose? You have a plethora of choices out there, but what do you choose and invest in and get better at in order to make yourself worthy? The pursuit of meaning would be would be acquired through such a journey. It's a blessing and also a curse. But this is definitely not a message out there to say that we have to give up. We have to work even harder. Yeah, we have to work even harder to find what's special about ourselves and to hone in on those differences. Not really into that MBTI stuff, but differing gifts, that I do believe in. I do believe in individual value. I do believe in human creativity. And that's also something that the AI revolution will not be able to take away from us humans being humans. Because originality and innovation, I still do believe that those are very human things. And I also might be wrong, but technology and AI as of right now, they can create iterations of things that have already existed in the past. But the operator is always human. There will still be a great amount of value placed on things that are inherently human. That would be the arts, especially. I do not think that people out there will blindly adopt creations that are, created by artificial intelligence, because as social animals, and if you've seen other videos in the channel, I do think that humans are very, very hierarchical and very prone to imitation. And to have an hierarchy, you need to have someone to look up to, and that person is going to be human. I'm differentiating from the rest of the pack. In that way, I can elevate my perceived status in the hierarchies and the social circles that I am included in. So that will not change. As long as humans remain as social animals and our pursuit for higher status is in place, nothing's going to change. I do want to say that there's still quite a lot of hope. That's it for today.